Welcome to Alaska Matters with Chris Story. To reach Chris, call 226-3933. 226-3933. Now, giving you something to talk about, here's Chris Story.
And welcome to Alaska Matters. I'm Christopher Story, your host for great adventures in the last frontier. You're listening to our inaugural program of Alaska Matters. Now, normally we'll be broadcasting on Tuesdays from 12:30 to 1 o'clock. Today, however, to accommodate our very special guests, we're here on KGTL on Thursday. But again, set your calendars for Tuesdays from 12:30 to 1, Alaska Matters. It's your show. We want to hear from you. It's all about you. So today, I am joined by your two candidates for borough mayor, Fred Sturman and Mike Navarre. As you know, we've got a historic runoff election on October 25th. That's next Tuesday. They're counting on your votes. They're counting on a good turnout. We're going to ask them all kinds of questions today and get to know the candidates better. If you've got a question for either candidate, call right now, 226-3933. We will not be able to have you on the air with us. However, we'll get your question taken down and ask the candidates as time allows. So please, the number 226-3933. It's your chance to get in right now and let Tiffany know what you'd like us to ask, and we'll accommodate. Those of you that would prefer, you're welcome to text message 299-7653, 299-7653. Also, feel free to shoot me an email, story@xyz.net, story@xyz.net. This is a historic event. It's my pleasure and privilege to welcome our two guests. With all of that said, we do have with us again Mike Navarre and Fred Sturman, and we're about to find out why on earth either one of these guys would like this job. So, Mike Navarre, would you please just give us your best shot here? Why should we hire you for the borough mayor?
Well, thank you, Chris, and thanks for hosting us on Alaska Matters today. My name's Mike Navarre, and I grew up. I spent my whole life here on the Kenai Peninsula. I graduated from high school in 1974. I served for 12 years in the Alaska legislature and 3 years previously as Kenai Borough Mayor from 1996 to 99, so I have good business experience and good government experience. The reason I'm running for the job this time is I want to improve public confidence in our local government, focus on making sure that we do a good, responsible job in managing borough government and the borough budget, and communicating with the public about what we're doing and why we're doing it and how much it's costing them as taxpayers.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Mike Navarre. Now, Fred Sturman, it's your opportunity to make a pitch for the job. Go ahead.
Well, my name is Fred Sturman, and I want to thank you guys for hosting us here today. Mike and I have had several debates together, and but the biggest reason why I'm running here is I seen several years ago that the borough was spending more money than we could afford. So I threw my hat in so I could start telling the people that we need to start slowing up our government. I see that we have a lot of problems in the borough. I don't know all the answers, but what I want to do is to get the two sides together and the problems that we have, sit down and come up with solutions. And if we all work together, we can do more with less. And I know we can if we work together in the borough in the next few years.
All right, there you have it. Thank you both, gentlemen. We will be back. Now, stay tuned because there's a lot more to come with Fred Sturman and Mike Navarre. All that happening next right here on Alaska Matters.
Now that it's colder and darkness has taken over, it's easy to let it get you down. But you know, one thing that really perks me up, how more and more people are lighting up their houses for the holidays, thanks to Christmas Decor by Dutch Boy Landscaping. Dutch Boy makes turning your home or business into a cheery piece of the winter puzzle, minus the hassle of having to find a good spot to base a ladder on ice, battle the elements, or scale that roof. It makes a lot of sense to rely on expert decorators trained in safety and proper installation methods. Christmas Decor offers customized lighting displays, garlands, wreaths, and bows. They can design the display, install it, maintain it. They even take down and clean up when the season's over. So if you've been dreading hauling out boxes and boxes of holiday decorations and the threat to life and limit entails, Maybe it's your year to leave it to Christmas decor by Dutch Boy Landscaping. Find out more about brightening up your place with professional holiday decorating. Contact Danny at 235-7140. 235-7140. Christmas decor by Dutch Boy. Call now.
Commit this number to memory, 399-1526. When you need snow removal, snow plowing, and sanding this winter, call Richard at 399-1526. Gregoire Construction, locally owned and lifelong Alaskan operated, specializes in excavating, land clearing, landscaping, driveways, asphalt paving, water, and sewer. There's still time to get those last-minute projects done before the snow flies. Licensed, bonded, and insured, Gregoire Construction. Alaska Matters is brought to you in part by Blackwater Bend, keeping Alaska awake and perky for over 10 years. On the Sterling Highway halfway between Homer and Anchor Point, your year-round headquarters for expertly crafted coffee and tasty treats. Make Blackwater Bend your coffee shop. Hey, what's your name?
My name is Bobby Triplett. I am a barista here at the Blackwater Bend. My favorite drink for the season is a raspberry Baista. We are open from 5 a.m. in the morning, crack of dawn, till 7 p.m. at night.
Welcome back to the program. I'm Chris Story, and this is Alaska Matters. And you know that your vote matters and your voice matters. On Tuesday, we'll have an opportunity to elect one of my two special guests today on the program for your next borough mayor. Will it be Mike Navarre or will it be Fred Sturman? Only you can decide. So we do have a listener email, and the question will go first to Mike. And Mike, the listener would like to know how much, let me read this here. I would like to know what each of the candidates would do specifically to encourage more oil and gas exploration and production in the borough. Mike?
Well, we're pretty fortunate right now because we're seeing an increased activity in oil and gas development, and I think what the borough can do is help with some of the permitting issues, particularly on borough lands and access in that manner, and also getting them good information and managing sort of the borough budget and borough taxes so that it's attractive for business to come here. And then the other part is just building relationships and encouraging them to increase their activity here. So I think we're doing a pretty good job of it now. Maybe that we need a liaison in boroughs, at the borough or with the borough mayor's office, or the mayor can do some of that himself, but building relationships is a big part of it.
All right, thank you, Mike Navarre. Now, Fred Sturman, how would you tackle gas exploration and encourage more oil and gas exploration?
I will apologize. Somebody's trying to call my wife.
Well, don't apologize to me. You better find out now. So the question, Fred, is specifically what would you do to encourage more oil and gas exploration? Go ahead.
I plan on having no oil and gas liaison in my deal because I was raised up with the oil and gas, and I pretty well understand oil and gas stuff, and I would like to be pretty well my own liaison in the deal. And pretty well what Mike said is pretty well what we can do to help the borough. And I think we need to look for more independents to try to come up. And I think if we got somebody to do some looking and stuff, and if I looked at stuff, I think I could find some more independents that would like to come up. But then we need to convince the state that they need to open up some more leases here on the Kenai Peninsula.
Okay. All right. Very well. In the next 3 years, revenues are projected to decline potentially here from the state to the borough. What budget cuts would either of you propose to keep from raising taxes? And Mike, let's go back to you.
Well, you know, when you talk about budget cuts, it really does depend significantly on what happens with the state funding, because we get a lot of funding for education. Education is clearly one of our most important areas of our responsibility. So if and at 65% of the borough budget goes to education. So really, when you're talking about trying to find areas of with the borough population still increasing, and with most of the general government areas assessing the planning department, the finance department, the maintenance department, even all of those have remained the same in terms of number of personnel for the last 12 or 15 years. the growth areas are in public safety because we've expanded emergency services and built new stations and things like that and had to staff them, and in education. Those are the two growth areas, and of course solid waste is an area that we could maybe focus a little attention on and get some savings, but when you're talking about large budget cuts, really it ends up focusing on education, and that's something that is very strongly supported by citizens of the borough, and so it's difficult to get there under that scenario.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Fred, how would you tackle that? If the state revenue contributions are going to be reduced, and it's projected that they will, what budget cuts would you propose to keep from raising taxes?
Well, obviously, if you go to my website there, votefred.us, I've said that we're going to start with the employees because they're the ones that handle the money and stuff, and I'm figuring I'll have a meeting with them. And I think that they can find quite a few savings, and I plan on having a joint session meeting with the school board and the assembly and the two finance directors of each department and myself, Mr. Atwater. And I think if we sit down and look at the situations of each other's, I think that, and we understand each other's budgets a lot, I think we can start looking at some savings in quite a few different directions. And that's pretty well where I think we should start. I'm not going to go in and start slashing and burning, and as has been said, because I know we can't, that we need to work on all the savings we can in the budget and then see if we have enough to make it at that point.
Chris, as a follow-up.
Yes, Mike.
As a follow-up, if you're facing budget cuts from the state level, there will be impacts at the local level, whether it's in education or we get a lot of money currently from the state for our road maintenance program for road service areas, and if that gets cut, it either means that services end up being reduced, or else revenues. If you're going to get additional revenues, it means additional taxes, and that's something that you have to measure in terms of whether or not the impacts from the reductions at the state level are so severe that the public and the taxpayers are willing to pick it up locally. That's really what it boils down to.
Okay. All right, Fred, does that make sense to you? All right. Let's go to term limits. I have someone who would like to know, what's your feeling on term limits for the assembly members and other elected officials? Fred, let's start with you.
Well, I helped collect the signatures for the initiative, and I believe in term limits and 2 terms only. And when we wrote the initiative, and because I helped write the initiative and all of that, we thought that everybody would understand that a term is whenever you're elected, even if it's for 1 day, is a term, and then you would serve 3 more years after that would be 2 terms. But the Assembly didn't think that our definition was, and they've used it, and I feel like the Assembly didn't go along with the what the voters wanted, and I feel like that we should go back to the original term limits. And the other thing I think is that we need to work on the initiative system. I think that when the voters vote for an initiative system, the Borough Assembly should not be able to change it without putting it on the ballot. And I think that's one of the deals we need to work on with the legislation, because that has to be done in the legislation.
All right. Mike, what are your feelings on the term limits for the Assembly members and other elected officials?
Well, for other elected officials, let me start with that. The
Okay.
Governor and the mayor are both administrative positions, and both of them are limited, and I agree with that. You know, the president is limited to 2 terms, so I support that. For legislative bodies, oftentimes I think what the public fails to see is that there's already a tremendous amount of turnover in legislative races, or if there's not turnover, oftentimes there's only one person who may be running. It's running unopposed or uncontested races, so it's difficult to get people to run for office in today's political environment. It's perfectly understandable, given sometimes some of the attacks that are made at various times. So I generally don't support term limits, but we have term limits in the borough. We have term limits for assembly members. And I think that what the Assembly did in order to clarify what a term is made good sense. I think it was responsible, and I think that initiative, even though the writers of the initiative may have understood what they were trying to accomplish, I'm not so sure that everybody who voted on it understood it more than limiting it to 2 terms. How you define a term is something that I think the Assembly did a good job of, because absent that, it could have been a situation under reapportionment, which happens every 10 years with the new census. You could have had a situation where 2 terms meant a partial term of 1 year plus another single-year term, and then reapportionment would change it and people would have to run again. So one Assembly district may have had a assemblyman who could only, or woman who could only serve for 2 years, and that would count as 2 terms, and that really didn't make sense. I think that even as Fred described it, a 1-year term and then a full 3-year term made better sense. But that was not what, in fact, was written into the code then, and so I think the Assembly clarifying it made good sense.
Fred, Assembly clarification, did it make sense to you?
No. I still think that the voters voted on term limits, and I think that they pretty well knew what we were talking about whenever they voted, and the Assembly, I think, overrode what the people really wanted in the city.
Okay. In the last election, voters were asked to repeal 2 things, actually, to do both of the following, actually. Non-prepared foods tax holiday, repeal that, and they were also asked to increase the sales tax by 0.1% for economic development. Both failed. Neither initiative passed. Where did you stand on those 2 questions, and why? Starting with you, Fred.
Well, I voted no and no on both of them because I was part of the people that the signatures for the grocery tax, and I do appreciate the Borough Assembly putting that back on the ballot so the people could vote on it without have to collect the signatures. The number 2 ballot, the 1/10 increase for economical development and non-discretionary spending. I don't feel like that the borough has the money and to take the borough taxpayers' money and give it to basically non-profit corporations or non-profit organizations, because I know a lot of non-profits here that if they applied for the money, well, the Borough Assembly would not consider them as persons. I think the non-profits should find ways to raise their own money, and I know there's some problems, and I've been talking and looking at a few, and I think I will have some solutions here shortly after I become the borough mayor, and we thank you. You're next, Mike.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Mike. The 2 initiatives, repeal of the non-prepared food tax holiday and the 0.1%. Where'd you stand and why?
I voted yes to repeal the non-prepared tax, but since it was not repealed, what I have talked about doing and what I think makes some sense is limiting that to a single quarter. Currently, it's the holiday is for, or the exemption is off for 9 months. The tax is off for 9 months and on for 3 months, but the month it's on is June, July, and August, which crosses 2 quarters, which means both the borough and its administrative job, but more importantly, the retailers and the business people have to deal with it over 2 quarters and split it between 2 quarters. And I think it's reasonable to look at changing that to a single quarter, so that instead of June, you would make the month September, so it would be July, August, September. You'd have 1 month that you were applying the tax to rather than 2 separate quarters. It would be in one quarter. I think that makes good sense. The second one I voted no on, and because I didn't think that, one, it should be 1/10 of a cent or a penny in sales tax to pay for those things. I think it's a bad precedent to start putting things on the ballot a penny at a time or something. It seems like a small amount. Cumulative, where I just thought it was a very bad precedent. As far as funding for those entities that are the so-called non-departmentals, tourism is very important, and part of the money that is considered in that is tourism, and the tourism industry contributes some to the Tourism Marketing Council, and the borough does also, because it's so important to the borough, the economic activity that takes place. The borough then covers some of that sales tax and property taxes and otherwise. So I think that it makes sense to promote economic development, and tourism is certainly an important part of that. Some of the others, economic development and the Economic Development District, I think also makes sense that we should be promoting economic development on the Kenai Peninsula. So I voted no because I thought it was a bad precedent for sales tax, and secondly, I thought it was a responsibility of the Assembly to take that up during a regular, deliberative budget process that goes through very public hearings and then make a determination about whether to fund those entities or not. And that's what has to happen anyway, because any Assembly member can make an amendment to include into the budget. So it's going to happen anyway.
All right, Fred, any follow-up to that or last-minute thoughts before we take a break?
I agree with Mike that we do need to change it because it is a problem on the sales tax. Change it to make it 1 quarter instead of in the 3 quarters to make it a lot easier on the business people.
Okay. All right, there you have it, folks. We'll be back with more with our two guests, which are Mike Navarre and Fred Sturman, both candidates for your vote, upcoming election, runoff election on the 25th. Stay tuned. Now, don't forget, you can send us a text message at 299-7653. We'll get your questions in. Also, feel free to call here at Story Real Estate at 226-3933. We'll get your questions in just a minute right here on Alaska Matters.
An amazing opportunity in the heart of Homer awaits you. Deborah Lysick at Bay Realty wants to tell you about a prime location on Pioneer Avenue, a 5,600 square foot building with land to make your Homer dream come true. Make it what you need, business, home, or both. Deborah at Bay Realty is excited about the possibilities with this building and location. It can be a restaurant, a pizza shop, retail shops, newspaper office, bed and breakfast, coffee shop with lodging. The ideas go on and on. The half-acre yard in the back's beautiful. It could be a pleasant outside restaurant or play area or a peaceful resting spot for you and your guests. Remember, it's in downtown Homer on Pioneer Avenue, town center in more ways than one. The views are beautiful. Plus, it's a prime location on Pioneer Avenue and parade viewing spot. Call Deborah Lysick at Bay Realty for detailed information today at 235-6183. 235-6183. When you need results, Bay Realty.
Oh, no. I'm out of water. No problem. Call More and More, your locally owned water supplier. 24-hour service from your locally owned water company. Tired of working with an outside corporation? Want to support local business and get better service for less? Then put More and More to work for you. 235-8837. More and More is next door. 235-8837.
The Caribou family restaurant looks great after their remodel and is still open daily 6 a.m. till 10 at Lake Street and Pioneer Avenue in Homer, and open 24 hours daily in Soldotna at the corner of K Beach Road and the Sterling Highway. The Caribou family restaurant features prime rib on Friday and Saturday nights. Breakfast or lunch, any time of the day. The Caribou family restaurant in Homer and in Soldotna, open every day of the year, where friends and family meet.
Welcome back to Alaska Matters. I'm your host, Christopher Story. Great adventures in the last frontier. On the program today, our debut program. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. Glad to have you along with us. We're talking with Mike Navarre and Fred Sturman. Both are looking for your vote on Tuesday. Both want the job of borough mayor, but it's up to you. We're taking your questions at 226-3933, 226-3933. Also, a big shout-out to all our sponsors. I really want to thank them for making this possible. That's Dutch Boy Landscaping and Holiday Decor. Don't forget, you'll be seeing the buildings get lit up here pretty quick. Gregoire Construction, Richard and the crew, Pat and everybody out at Blackwater Bend, Deborah and her team at Bay Realty, thank you much. More and More Services, which could stop at More and More Service, because that's what they're all about. Caribou Family Restaurant, we want to thank all of our great sponsors. Again, without them, we have no program. So thank you so very much. And we'll go back to our guest here. And when we last left off, what did we learn? We learned that Fred did not support either of the tax initiatives. Mike was in favor of repealing the holiday, will just deal with it as it is and wants to make some changes, was against, both candidates were against the 0.1% increase for economic development of the sales tax. And I guess a follow-up to that, gentlemen, would be, and Mike, you touched on this, do you support continued base-level funding for organizations such as Kenai Peninsula Borough Economic Development District and the Kenai Peninsula Tourism and Marketing Council? So, Mike, we'll carry on the conversation. Do you support the continued baseline funding as it exists right now?
You know, I do, but having said that, I think that it's also important that we analyze what we're getting for the dollars that we spend and make sure that we hold those organizations accountable, because every dollar that's spent by the borough is taxpayer money, and we ought to make sure that we're getting a bang for our buck, so to speak, and that we're holding them accountable. So we'll do that and figure out what it is that we're getting as a benefit for those dollars, because we should get a benefit to the borough, and I know that we are from economic development, and from tourism. Certainly we have a lot of activity here in tourism during the summer. It's a very important industry in our area, and we should support it.
Okay, Fred, what say you? Kenai Peninsula Borough Economic Development District and Tourism Marketing Council, base level funding, should that continue?
I probably, if I was making the budget out today, there would be no place in our budget for them to receive any money from it. I feel like that they're very important, but I don't think that the taxpayers today need any more spending than is necessary to carry what the borough is mandated to do at schools, roads, and garbage, and that type of stuff, assessments and so forth. I think that should be the limit of what we do.
All right, Mike, any follow-up to that?
Well, the key part of it is the investment, and whether or not if you're getting a return on the investment. For tourism marketing, if it returns because of additional visitors coming to the Kenai Peninsula, or additional businesses locating here, things like that increase the tax base, perhaps increase the sales tax revenues. It helps generate funds for the borough, and if it does that in excess of the amount that you're paying for the service or to promote that, then it would seem like it's a good investment, and that's the part that I'm talking about in terms of accountability. You have to make sure that you're analyzing that objectively and making sure that you are getting a benefit from it.
The borough sold the city of Homer the old middle school building for $1. Current occupants of that building include the Boys and Girls Club. Due to the high cost of maintaining that building, and that's specific here to Homer, for your benefit there, cost of maintaining the building is excessive. The city's about to evict the kids, the Boys and Girls Club. I heard Mayor Carey say the other day that the issue was only brought to his attention very recently. If it had been brought to him earlier, he would have gotten involved. So my question for both of you, is there something the borough can do to help this situation with the Boys and Girls Club and the old middle school there that was given to the city, or is it specifically a city issue? Fred, let's go to you.
Well, if the borough didn't need the property, I think it's a good deal that the borough got rid of the property so they don't have to take part in it. But that is part of the problems that we have on the borough. There's a lot of these so-called free money, and then whenever we get the stuff, the maintenance cost is more than we can do, more than we can handle. And if I was borough mayor, I would be kind of upset if the borough was involved with that, and I didn't know about it until the last minute. With my type of management of businesses and stuff that I had, I don't like surprises, and because I like to stomp the fires out whenever they're small. After they get big, they're hard to put out.
Mike, what would you do in the case the Boys and Girls Club comes to you for help to maintain the building? Is it something the borough can do anything about?
Well, I am on the Boys and Girls Board, so obviously it's something that I very, very much support, Boys and Girls Club. But as far as what we do about that has to be a separate conversation, I think, and discussion, because I really haven't thought of it in terms of what the borough could do specifically for the Boys and Girls Club. But with regard to the old school there and the building adjacent to it, I was mayor when we actually sold that to the city, and I think at the time what we were looking at is a benefit to the city. The borough didn't need the building any longer. We weren't using it for a school. We could give it to the city. It was they were considering possibly moving City Hall or doing something with it. And one of the things that I think maybe wasn't fully explored, and I don't remember entirely, but we handed them over buildings and we gave it to them for $1.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we gave them some problems too. There's asbestos in some of those buildings. There needs to be some mitigation of that. And so I think that maybe we overestimated the benefit to the city from that transfer, and there may be some responsibility that the borough has to look at what we can do to help mitigate some of the costs that we passed on to the city, which was not something that we were trying to do at the time, is to burden the city with those costs. And that obviously is something that would have to take place through discussions with the city, and then of course the assembly would have to approve it. But I think that it might make some sense to help alleviate some of the problems that they have with those structures.
Well, believe it or not, guys, our time is coming to a close. It's the fastest 30 minutes of our day. In so doing, just remind everyone the election is on Tuesday the 25th. Your vote counts. And starting with you, Fred, let's give you a minute to say any final or closing thoughts and make that final pitch for somebody's vote who might be listening here in Homer.
Well, I just want the people to go to my website, votefred.us. My phone number is 252-0100. That's my office. I carry it in my shirt pocket. If you hear any rumors or et cetera about it, well, call me and I'll be straight with you forward. And whether you vote for me or Mike, let's see if we can't get about a 40 or 50% turnout at this election, and let's make it a big boost on the Kenai Peninsula, so we know where the Kenai Peninsula people really stand on what type of government they'd like to have for the next 3 years.
All right, Fred Sturman, you heard it from him. Mike Navarre, your minute to persuade the people. Go ahead.
All right, well, Chris, thanks again for this opportunity, and I want to say thanks to Fred for the way he's conducted himself during this campaign. It's been a friendly and actually fun campaign over the last couple of weeks. I have the experience to do the job. I will listen to citizens within the different communities and work hard as mayor in order to make sure we do a responsible job managing your government. And I'll communicate with the public about what we're doing and why we're doing it and how much it's costing the taxpayers to do so. And I look forward, I agree with Fred, I hope we have a great turnout. It's important, elections are important. Whoever you're going to vote for, I encourage you to get out and vote. You can vote early now at city halls or at the borough building. And if you're going to be out of town or if you're going to have something else going on, keep you too busy on Election Day next Tuesday, get out and vote early. Let's have a great turnout. Again, thanks for this opportunity.
You're welcome, gentlemen. Thank you both. Thank you for running. That's a big deal. We do need people to stand up and say, I'm willing to do the job, and that's what you've done. So thank you, Fred Sturman, and thank you, Mike Navarre. Folks, thank you for listening. We'll be back here on KGTL AM 620 Tuesday, 12:30 to 1 o'clock. I want to thank Dave Webb for engineering the program, along with Tim White. For everyone at KGTL, I'm Chris Story. Alaska Matters.
The Peninsula's home for unforgettable favorites. Great listening, 620 AM, KGTL.